Hey guys, what's going on? It's Clever Techie, and in this video we're going to be creating a responsive PHP shopping cart with Bootstrap. This is what our shopping cart is going to look like. It's going to display product images, titles, and prices. We're going to be able to add as many products as we like to our shopping cart by modifying the text field. Down here we're going to display order details with a product name, quantity, price, and the total for each individual product, as well as the grand total for all the products combined that are in our shopping cart. We can also remove products from the shopping cart by pressing the remove button, and down here at the bottom we're going to display the checkout button. Our shopping cart is going to be responsive, so if I drag the window here, at a first breakpoint it's going to reduce the image sizes. At a second breakpoint it's going to display our shopping cart in 2 rows, and finally at a last breaking point it's going to display 1 column, making it responsive for tablets as well as cell phone devices. And if I scroll down here, you can see that the order details table has become scrollable, making it responsive as well. So that's our responsive PHP shopping cart with Bootstrap. Let's go ahead and create it. So the first thing I want to show you guys is an overview of all the steps that we're going to be completing. I've created this outline in Microsoft OneNote, which is a free program that you can download. And this just gives us an overview of all the steps that we're going to be completing, and we can keep track of how many we have completed by checking off this empty box right next to all the individual steps. We can also write pseudocode, which makes it easier to solve programming problems and organize our code better later on. So as you can see, there are 6 main steps that we're going to be completing. We're going to create the shopping cart database with a products table. Then we're going to insert data into our products table. Then we're going to display products. We're going to display order details, which is going to be the main part of our program. Then we're going to add a remove button next to each product. And finally, we're going to display checkout button if the shopping cart is not empty. I've also included a link in the description of this video where you guys can download this file. So the first step is to create shopping cart database and products table, which is what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the command prompt, and I'm going to connect to the database. Then I'm going to create the database by typing create database cart. Then I'm going to open up the browser and go to PHP my admin that I already have open here, and check if the database has been created. And as you can see, I have created cart database, which is empty right now. So the next step is to create products table. There are many ways to do this. I have already typed up this code to create products table. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and go back to PHP my admin. I'm going to paste it here in the console of PHP my admin. Then I'm going to press Control Enter and execute the query. At this point, our products table has been created, and we're now ready to insert our product data into the table. So in order to fill our products table, I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did for the actual table. I'm going to go ahead and copy this insert statement and paste it back into PHP my admin console. I'm going to hit Control Enter to execute the query, and at this point, our products table has been filled with the actual product names, images, and prices. Now, if you guys are going to be copying this insert statement, just make sure that your PHP file and image files are in the same folder. Otherwise, it's not going to work because you'll have to specify the actual path names to the files. And this is how I have my PHP files along with image names. They're all in the same folder. Okay, so at this point we have created the database and products table. We have also inserted data into our products table. The next step is to display our products. And when we complete this next step, which is displaying our products, our shopping cart is going to look like this. So it's going to display product image, product title, and product price, along with all the add to cart buttons next to each individual product. So let's go ahead and get started on displaying products. Now, as you can see, underneath display products, we have 3 sub-steps that we're going to be completing. And the first one is to connect to the database and run MySQL query to select all products from our table. Then we're going to loop through all the product results to get the data of each individual product. And finally, we're going to display product data inside of our add to cart form with image name, price, quantity text field, and add to cart button. Now, before we start coding HTML and working with Bootstrap CSS, I just want to complete these 2 steps with pure PHP, and later on we're gonna start working on formatting. So let's complete this step first with PHP and connect to the database and run MySQL query to select all products from the products table. As you can see, I've already created a new PHP file here named cart.php. I also have a cart.css, which is going to be our cascading style sheet file to format our shopping cart. I also have index.php, which has completed shopping cart code, just so that I can show you guys what the completed shopping cart is going to look like throughout this video. And I also have completed CSS as well. So these are the 2 files that we're going to be working with here, cart.php and cart.css. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect to our database first and then select products from our table. Okay, so I'm just gonna open up the PHP tag and then connect to the database. I'm gonna store everything inside a variable called connect using a function called mysqli_connect, which takes in 4 parameters. The first one is localhost, username, which is root, password, make sure to use your own password, and the database name, which is cart in our case. Then we're going to create the query string and store it inside the query variable. And our statement is going to be selecting all the products from our products table. So select all products from products, order by ID ascending. So now that we have the connection and the query, we actually have to execute this query and store everything inside of our result variable. So we're going to use the mysqli query function, which takes in 2 parameters. The first one is the mysqli connection, and the second one is the query. Okay, so now that we have our connection and we have executed the query, we're going to check to make sure that the products table is not empty. So we're just going to say if result, and we're also going to check if the result is more than 0 with mysqli num_rows function. So if mysqli num_rows result is greater than 0, continue running. At this point, we're ready to loop through all the product data. We're going to use a while loop and store everything inside of a product array. And we're going to use a function called mysqli fetch associative result. So this loop is just going to loop through all the data that's inside of our result, and it's going to store everything inside of an associative array. And we can also print out each individual product right now inside the while loop just to see what we have so far. So we're going to use a function called printr product, and then view the result in a browser, and product SQL fetch select from products order. Oh, I have a mistake in my query. Refresh. I'm gonna go to view page source, and as you can see, I have all the product data, and now we're ready to work with all these products and start formatting them. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to OneNote and check off these 2 steps here. And the last one to complete our displaying products is going to be display product data inside of the cart form, and along with all the product image name, price, quantity, and add to cart button, which is the formatting part that we're going to be doing right now. So the first thing I'm going to do here is declare doctype HTML. Then provide some basic HTML tags. For the title, I'm gonna name this page Shopping Cart Working. And then I'm gonna go ahead and include two style sheets. The first one is going to be Bootstrap CSS. So I'm gonna say link rel equals style sheet, href equals Bootstrap CSS URL, and same thing for our custom card.css style sheet, href is going to be card.css. For now, card CSS is empty, but we're going to be working with it later. I just want to make sure that we've included our Bootstrap as well as our custom CSS for now. Now, the next step is we're going to be printing out all of our product data inside of a body tag. So we want to go ahead and copy this PHP and paste it inside of this body tag here. We also want to go ahead and end PHP with a closing PHP tag. Okay. Next up is we want to make sure that we're printing out all the products inside of a Bootstrap container, which is going to basically contain the whole code within this container. And so we want to go ahead and create this new div tag just after the body tag. So div class equals container. Container. Want to make sure we end this tag just before the body tag down here. Okay, so we want to be printing all of our product data inside of the while loop, because this is where we're accessing all of our product data, including price, name, etc. So we want to go ahead and end PHP code here and reopen it down here, because we're going to be printing more HTML. I'm also going to go ahead and change the syntax to shorthand by replacing these opening curly brackets with a colon, and I'm gonna replace these closing brackets with the end while and end if statements, just because it looks nicer and it's easier to organize our code like that. Okay, so inside of this while loop, we're gonna be accessing all our product data, and we want to be printing all of our product data inside of Bootstrap columns. These columns are going to be responsive, and they're going to be changing their size based on the screen size resolution. For our example, we're going to be using two column names, small and medium, and this is how we're going to be accomplishing it. So we're going to create a new div class equals call sm4 and call md3. I'm gonna explain what this means right now. Before we want to make sure that we end this div tag and it's still inside of our while loop. Okay, so what this means here, sm and md are our breaking points. So if I go to Bootstrap website, you can see that it says small devices, and this is our sm. What these SM letters mean. So media breakpoint SM is going to be at 576 pixels, and media breakpoint MD is going to be at 768 pixels. So what this means is Bootstrap is gonna change our column names to this number when the screen resolution changes to 576 for small devices, and it's going to change our column width to number 3 for screens that are 768 pixels and up. Okay, hopefully this makes sense. Here, actually, let me show you something else. So this is a completed shopping cart, and if I go ahead and change the screen resolution to 800, you can see that the column name has changed as well. And if I open up Web Developer Tools and go to Inspector, I can click on one of these columns and then select one of these columns here. So I'm selecting this product core sale crystal case. And so if I change this column name here to 4, for example, you can see that the size of this column has changed to a bigger width. So that's how that works, and you guys can go ahead and play around with it just to experiment and see how that works. Okay, let's go back to our code. So now that we're inside this responsive Bootstrap CSS column, we're ready to actually print out our form as well as all the other product information. So I'm gonna go ahead and type form. Method is going to be post, because we're going to be posting all our product data. And for the action, we want to make sure that we have that we provide a URL which contains our product ID, because we're going to be accessing our product ID so that we know which exact product is being added to the cart. So I'm going to say the page name, which is index.php, and then question mark action equals add. That's going to be our action name. And then the second variable, I'm going to separate with an ampersand and provide ID equals our product ID. And for that, I have to actually reopen the PHP tag and then close it again. Then I'm going to close the string with a double quote and close the HTML tag. And something is not right. Okay, so inside of the PHP tag, I'm gonna print out the actual product ID, just like that. Oh, okay. Gotta delete this double quote here. Okay, so if you remember from our print R statement, I'm actually gonna do this again here. Product. Gonna print out product so that I can show you guys how this works. I'm gonna go to view source, and so this is our array that we're accessing, and you can see that the product ID is our associative name ID, and that's how we're gonna be accessing all of our product IDs. So that's what we're doing here when we're printing out the product ID inside of the URL so that we know which exact product we're going to be accessing. Going to go ahead and close this form tag. Okay, so next up, I want to make sure that all the products are nicely formatted. So we're going to create another div and name it products. And this is a class that we're going to be creating later on inside of the card.css so that our columns look nice. Now we're ready to print out product image, name, and price. So for the image, I'm going to say image src equals, and then provide the actual product image name, which is product image, which is actual. This is the path where our product is located, so it's going to print it out inside of the image source. And then for the class, I'm going to say img responsive. Actually, I got to end this here. For the class, I'm going to say image responsive. Fix this here. And what this is going to do is going to resize our image to a different size based on the screen resolution. Something's not right here. Okay, I forgot to end this. Okay, so image-responsive is just gonna change, make our images responsive by changing their size based on the screen resolution. Next up is the name of the product, and this one I'm just gonna put it inside the h4. And say class equals text-info. And what this is going to do is it's just going to change the link color to blue. So if I go back to Bootstrap website, you can see that they have a bunch of different text colors, and text info is going to change it to info link, which is blue. So it's going to look like this. Okay, so that's what that means. And inside of the h4 tag, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the PHP tags once again and print out product name. Okay, it's not looking good so far, but let's go ahead and print out product price next. Okay, so H4. For the product price, I'm also going to be printing it out inside of the H4. And I'm going to put the $sign here and then open up the PHP tags as usual. Inside of the PHP tags, I'm going to say echo product price. So now we have our product image, name, and price. Next up, we want to have the quantity of the products that we're going to be adding to the cart, and this one is going to be changeable. So we want to make sure that it's inside of a text field. So we're going to say input type equals text. We're going to name it quantity, so we're going to be able to access this variable later on in our code. For the class, and this is another Bootstrap class, it's called form control. And it's going to format our text field in a really good looking way. For the value, it's going to be default value. I'm going to say 1. Okay, so now we have all our product data, but we don't have a way of accessing our product name and price because we're just printing them out as HTML inside of our form. So we want to make sure to add 2 more hidden text field types so that we're able to access these variables inside of our code later on. So I'm going to say input type equals hidden, and for the name is going to be product name, and the value is going to be the actual name of the product. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the PHP tags and print out product name. So that way we're going to be able to access our product name and price inside of the variables once the form has been submitted. I'm going to do the same exact thing for the price. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this product name here and replace the name to price here as well as here. Okay, so now we're going to be able to access all the variables once the form is submitted. And the final thing inside of our form is going to be the add to cart button so that the form can be submitted. So we're going to say input type equals submit. Name this one add to cart. For the Bootstrap class, I'm going to say btn info, and this one is just going to style our button really nicely. For the value, I'm going to say add to cart, which is going to be the actual text of our button. Now I can see how this thing looks like in a browser, and it looks terrible. Let's see. Oh, responsive. Okay, so that's that's what's gonna happen if our images are not responsive. Let's refresh the page, and I'm gonna go ahead and delete this print R statement. And as you can see, we're now printing out all of our product images, titles, prices, as well as text fields and add to cart buttons. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of a margin to our add to cart button, just so it has a little bit of space between the text field. So I'm gonna say style equals margin top 5px. Okay, so now we have a little bit of space in here, and we're now printing out all of our products. And the last part we're gonna do here is we're gonna add some custom CSS to our cart.css file so that the columns look a little bit nicer. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to cart.css, and if you remember, we created this class equals products, so this is exactly what we're gonna be working on here. So we're gonna create a new class named products, and first we're gonna add a border to our column with 1px solid, and the color is gonna be basically gray. We're also gonna add background color, which is also gonna be a gray background. We're also gonna add a border radius, which is going to be which is going to make our border rounded. 5px. Gonna add padding to add a little bit of spacing, as well as margin bottom. Let's see what this looks like now by refreshing the page. And as you can see, our products look a lot nicer now. Now, if you guys don't understand what some of this CSS means, you can always open up the inspector tools. You can click on each individual column and navigate to products over here, and you can go ahead and unselect all of the CSS that we just created. And it's going to change CSS by removing it and adding it again. So you can just play around with it and see what it does. You can see that it's adding round borders and background color. You can see where we're adding padding, and we can see where the margin has been created as well. So now our products are all being printed out really nicely, and we are done with that part of our project. So we can go back to our OneNote and check off display products. So we're done with display products, and now we're ready to work with display order details. Okay, so the first part of displaying order details is we want to make sure if the add to cart form has been submitted. Then we want to make sure if the session shopping cart exists. If the shopping cart exists, we want to create a numeric product IDs array, which will track array keys and match them to product IDs. This will make more sense as we get into coding this part of our project. But basically what this means is we want to create a numeric array because our session is going to be an associative array, and there won't be a way to match array keys to product IDs, which is what we need to correctly add and delete products from the shopping cart. So we're going to create a counter to keep track of how many products are in the shopping cart so that we know what the array key is for the next product. Then we want to add next product to existing session shopping cart array using that counter as next array key. On the other hand, if the shopping cart doesn't exist, we just want to create a session shopping cart array with submitted product data using the first array key, which is 0. Then we want to calculate individual product total. We want to calculate grand total for all the products, and we want to display all the order details on the page, including product name, quantity, price, total, and grand total. Okay, so now we're ready to start coding this part, and the first thing we're going to do is check if the add to cart form has been submitted. Let's go ahead and do that right now. So I want to go ahead and open up the PHP tags, and this whole code is going to be on top of all of our code that we have already created. First of all, I want to start the session with a session_start function. And I'm also going to create a new array named product IDs. This is going to be an empty array for now, and we're going to be using it later on in our program. Okay, so first thing we want to do is check if add to cart button has been submitted. So I'm going to say if filter input post add to cart, which is the name of our button down here. Then we want to proceed. So what this function does here is it basically checks if add to cart variable has been set. So this is how we check if the button has been in fact submitted. So we're done with that part, and we can check this off here. And next we want to check if the session shopping cart exists. So we're going to say if is set session shopping cart, just like that. Then we want to proceed with the next part of the program. On the other hand, if the shopping cart doesn't exist, so we want to add else, then we want to do this part of the program. Okay, I actually want to do this part first because it's very simple, and you guys can see what's going on before we move on to a more trickier part of this code. So let's go ahead and take care of the else where our shopping cart doesn't yet exist. Okay, so what we want to do here, if the shopping cart doesn't exist, is we just want to create a new session variable, or rather array, with a starting key 0. So let's add some commentaries here so that we know what's going on. If the shopping cart doesn't exist, create first product with array key 0. And over here we're going to be creating array using submitted form data starting from key 0 and fill it with values. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our session shopping cart. So I'm gonna say session, name it shopping cart, and I'm gonna provide the array key 0, which is the first array key, and then I'm gonna say array, and inside of this array we're gonna be accessing all the form data that's been submitted to this form. So the first one is going to be ID of the product. So ID filter input. This one is going to be accessed from the input get, because as you recall, we have provided this action URL with a product ID, and this is inside of a get variable rather than post, where all the other values are going to be accessed, because it's inside of this action URL. So this one is an input get. Okay, then we're going to be accessing our name of the product, which has been submitted inside of the input post. And the same thing for all the other variables or values. Product price, same thing. It's been accessed from post. And finally, the quantity of the product. And now we have all of our shopping cart or product information inside of our shopping cart session. So I can actually test this by printing out this session array that we have just created, just to see what's going on so far. Though before we do that, I actually want to create a new custom function so that it prints out HTML tags pre, which is going to display our array in a very nicely formatted way. So I'm going to say function, name the function pre-r, which is going to take in our array, and then what it's going to do is it's just going to print out the pre-tags. So the opening pre-tag, then it's going to print out the array using the regular built-in print-r function, and then I want to close the pre-HTML tag down here. Then I just want to replace this with pre-r so that we use our new custom function. Also, we want to make sure that our session is empty, so we want to make sure to use a function called session destroy. Otherwise, there might be some other variables inside of our session. So now I'm going to go back to the browser and see what this looks like. Okay, at this point, our array is empty, but if I click on add to cart on one of the products, you can see that our session array has been created with all the values inside of the session, starting with array key 0. And as you can see with the pre-tags, it's printing out the array in a nicely formatted way so that we can see what's going on right away. So now we know that this part of the code is working, so we can go back to OneNote and check off this step. Okay, now let's move on to the part where if the shopping cart exists. And we've also already completed the shopping cart exists. Okay, so for this part, we want to make sure to create a counter that's going to keep track of how many products are in the shopping cart, so that we know that the array key, so that we know the array key for the next product. So this is what we're going to do right now. Okay, so inside of our shopping cart where it exists, this is what we want to do. We want to create a new variable called count, and we want to use a simple function called count, which is going to count our session array shopping cart to see how many products are in it. And that's how simple it is. So now we have a counter, and we're going to use it in place of the array key so that we know which product key to use, which array key to use for the next product that's been added to the cart. Okay, so I'm going to comment this and say keep track of how many products are in the shopping cart. Okay, we're done with this part. And now we want to create a numeric product IDs array, which will track array keys and match them to product IDs. This part is necessary because our session shopping cart array is an associative array, as you can see here. And it's very difficult, if not impossible, to match this array key to the product ID in this way. So what we're going to be doing is creating a new array called product IDs, which is going to be a numeric array with array keys and product IDs only. And we're going to accomplish that with a function called array column. So this array that we've created earlier, we're going to say product IDs equals array column session shopping cart. And we want to provide the array column takes in two parameters. The first one is the array, and the second parameter is the column, which we want to isolate from the array. Okay, so I'm going to add a comment and say create sequential array for matching array keys to product IDs. And I'm going to go ahead and print out this product IDs array here so that I can explain it a little bit better. I'm going to comment out the session here. I'm going to comment out session destroy. Go back to the browser. Refresh the page. Add to cart. Okay, so you can see that for now, our program is only allowing us to add one product to the cart, but that's basically what it's doing. So it's isolating product ID, and it's matching it up with array key, which is the first array key, which is 0. So that's how our product IDs is going to look like. And this is just for knowing which exact product is being added to the cart and providing correct array key for that product. Okay, so next up, we want to make sure that the product being added to the cart does not already exist in the array. So we're going to say if not in array with an exclamation mark, filter input get ID. So this is going to check if the product with this ID already exists in the shopping cart array. And if it doesn't exist, it's going to proceed with the program. And here we want to do the same thing as we did inside of our doesn't exist statement. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this whole part. It's just going to be a little bit different. In place of the array key 0 here, I'm just going to put count. Just like that. And now what it's going to do is it's going to count how many products are in our shopping cart. And it's going to use that count for the next array key so that it knows which product is next. And we know which array key is going to be next as well. Okay, so that's it for that part. And the last one that we want to do is what we want to do in case if the product already exists in the shopping cart session variable, and we simply want to increase the quantity of the the quantity key of that product that's already in the shopping cart. We don't want to be re-adding the product again to the shopping cart session. And already, in order for us to do that, we want to create a new loop and loop through our product IDs. So we're going to say I equals 0. I'm going to create a for loop with I equals 0 and then count product IDs. I plus plus. So what we're doing is we're just looping through all the product IDs here. And we're going to say if product IDs equals the product that's been added to the cart. So if the product ID, which is already existing inside of the product IDs array, is going to match up with a product which has been submitted from the form inside of a get variable, if that happens, then we know that product already exists in the shopping cart. So we simply want to increase the quantity key of our session shopping cart. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So session shopping cart I quantity plus equals filter input post quantity. So what this is doing here, it's making sure that the array key is the same, and it's also using the quantity, which is the quantity of the product, and then I'm using plus equals, which is basically adding quantity to the existing quantity of this key, and the quantity that's been added is the quantity that's going to be provided from the form. And basically, it's going to add that quantity to the existing key. So, just to comment it a little bit so that we know what's going on, add item quantity to the existing product in the array. Also, over here, match array key to ID of the product being added to the cart. And product already exists, increase quantity. Okay, so our session should be working now. Let's go ahead and test it out. Let's add one of the products in the cart. In array expects at least 2 parameters, one given. Let's see. Okay, let's go ahead and fix that. I forgot to specify the actual product IDs here. Yeah, because we're checking if the product ID exists inside of our product IDs array. So make sure to add this array here. Okay, let's go back and see what's going on. Undefined variable product IDs, line 27. Product IDs. Okay, should be working now. So let's go ahead and print our session to see what's going on. And as you can see, our session has all the products that I've just been adding to the session. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some more products, and now that product has also been added to the session. And as you can see, all the products are inside of our session variable. And the quantity for Corsair is 4 right now, and if I click on it again, the quantity is now 5. So we can see that that part of the program is working as well. Okay, so you can go ahead and experiment with this and see how that works. And hopefully this makes sense. And now this part of the program is completed. And we can go ahead and go back to OneNote and check off all these checkboxes here. So the main part of the program is completed. And now we just have to calculate the individual product total, calculate the grand total for all the products, and finally display all this information on the order details page. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Okay, so for this part of the program where we're going to be calculating individual product total, calculating grand total, and then displaying order details on page, including product name, quantity, price, and total and grand total, I actually chose to copy and paste the completed code on the page because the code is actually very basic, but it would take forever to type, and I want to save some time in this video. And if you guys are going to be pasting this whole code, make sure that you're still inside of the div class equals container. Otherwise, it's not going to look good. So this is the new code that I've pasted here. And I'll explain what's going on here right now. Okay, so first of all, we're using a class, Bootstrap class called table responsive, so that when our shopping cart is really small, the table is going to be scrollable, as you can see here. Okay, so that's what that does. It's a really nice feature of Bootstrap. Next, we're using a regular class table, and inside of this table we have our table headers, which is this part here. And then we're looping through our session array, which is our array that we have created earlier in the video. So I'm going to add some more products to the session. So this is the array, the shopping cart array that we're going to be looping through in order to display all this quantity, price, and total along with product name data. Okay, so we're looping through the array. We make sure that it's not empty. Then we're creating a new variable called total, which is what we're going to be using to calculate grand total of all the products. Then we're creating a for each loop to loop through our shopping cart array, and and then we're accessing all those values inside of our shopping cart array, and we're just printing them out. So we're printing out product name, quantity, price. So that part is so this is the product name here, quantity, and price, which is exactly what's inside of our shopping cart session variable. Next, we're calculating the total for the individual product by multiplying quantity by price, and we're using a function called number format to format this number nicely, and this is what's being printed out here. Next up is the remove button, which is this red button here, and we're going to be hand coding this part later in the video, but for now we're basically using an action called delete so that we know what kind of action is being submitted, so that we know to remove the product from our session. And we're printing out product ID in the same way that we have done in our form over here, where the product has been added to the cart. So basically that's how we know which product to remove from the cart. And for the Bootstrap CSS, we're using btn-danger, which is what's making this button red. Down here we have the total that we set to 0 previously, and we're just adding more total to the existing total by multiplying the product quantity by price. And that's how we create grand total for all the products, which has been printed out at the bottom here. Okay, so that's it for all the data. This is where we're actually printing out the grand total, and we're using align right to align this number to the right side of the screen. Finally, we have a checkout button, and this button we only want to display if the shopping cart is not empty. So we're checking if the shopping cart is not empty, and we're making sure that the shopping cart contains more than 0 products, and only then we're printing this button with a custom CSS. And as you can see here in cart.css, I've also chosen to paste the remaining CSS here. And this is just going to be a lot more productive, because you guys can play around with this with the inspector tools in a similar way we've done with the columns, and you can go ahead and check out this you can go ahead and check out this checkout button, and this is all the CSS that's been created for this button. So you can go ahead and play around with that by removing the background, color, alignment of the text, padding, and you can see what all the CSS does to the bottom to the button instead of typing all this code. Okay, so that completes that part of the program. So we can go ahead and check all the checkboxes here along with the display checkout button. And the last part that we're gonna do is we're gonna remove we're gonna add the remove button to next to each product. As you can see, the button has already been added. Now we're just gonna have to hand code this part of the program by simply removing or unsetting the product from the session. So we're gonna loop through the session shopping cart variable and match it with the get ID of the product that's been deleted. Then we're gonna unset array key of the product in the session variable, and finally we're gonna reset array keys in the session of the product cart so that they match with the product ID's array. All right, let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so the first thing we want to make sure is that the link with the action delete has been clicked, which is this URL down here, so that we know that the user actually wants to remove the product from the cart. So we want to make sure to check for action delete. All right, let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so we're going to say if filter input get action equals delete, and that's how we're going to check that the user has clicked on that action. Next, we're going to loop through our session shopping cart, loop through all products in the shopping cart until it matches with get ID variable. Okay, so down here inside of our delete URL, you can see that the product ID is provided. So we're just gonna take this product ID and match it with our shopping cart ID of the product so that we know which product to remove. All right, so let's create a for each loop to loop through our session shopping cart as key product. So now we're looping through our shopping cart array, and now we're gonna check if the product ID matches with our get ID that the user is trying to delete. So if product ID equals get ID, and that's how we're gonna know. One second. If product ID. Okay, so we're looping through the product IDs and we're matching them with a get ID that's been provided from the actual URL of the product that's been deleted. And so now we know which product to remove from our shopping cart. So we're going to use a simple function called unset session shopping cart, and we're going to unset the key of that product. So that's going to remove the product from the shopping cart when it matches with the get ID. Going to comment that, remove product from the shopping cart when it matches with the get ID. Okay, so now this is going to remove the product from our session. And lastly, what we want to do is we want to reset session array keys so they match with the product ID's numeric array. Otherwise, when our products are deleted from the cart, they're no longer going to be matched with the session. So we want to reset session array keys so they match with product ID's numeric array. And this is to make sure that the right products are being added and deleted to the cart. Otherwise, it's gonna mess it up. And in order to resort our shopping cart, we're gonna use a function called array values. So we want to say session shopping cart equals array values session shopping cart. And just like that, it's gonna resort our array. It's gonna sort our array so that all the keys match with product IDs array over here. Okay, we can now go ahead and test that out by opening up the browser. Can refresh the page and try to remove one of the products. And it says use of undefined constant ID on line 51. Let's go ahead and check out to see what's going on. Oh, okay. Make sure this is a string here. Now let's go back to the browser. Add to cart. Add all the products to the cart. Test out the remove button, and everything is working. You can also resize the window to see that our cart is in fact responsive. And as you can see, everything is working and our shopping cart is now complete. So you can go ahead and check off all the remaining checkboxes in our project, and our responsive PHP shopping cart with Bootstrap is now complete. Clever Techie out.